our guest speakers on how to build a financial coaching practice. We're going to be recording this session so that folks can hear it afterwards, or those who weren't able to make it can listen to the recording. So just hope that is okay with everybody. Yep. So anyway, welcome. It's just my pleasure to welcome you all, and those who might be listening down the road. Welcome. Thank you so much for your interest. We're so excited here at the Financial Social Work Initiative to be hosting these periodic networking events, and it's just a chance to hear from fabulous guest speakers and close colleagues. But also an opportunity to explore some issues related to financial social work, and to just be together and talk together, explore, discover new things related to this important topic. And we've just been really pleased with these, and again, it's just great to stay in contact with everyone and to make new friends and colleagues as well. So again, welcome. I'm so pleased to be able to introduce our close colleagues, Sue Rogan and Tisa Canady, here today. Tisa is the founder and the executive director of the Maryland Center for Collegiate Financial Wellness, which is a nonprofit that she started several years ago, and she is just doing fabulous work and just brings a wealth of experience and expertise with respect to this topic of financial coaching, and many others as well that she'll be touching on during the course of the hour. And then I am also very pleased to welcome our close friend and colleague, Sue Rogan, who is Director of Strategic Partnerships at the CASH Campaign of Maryland, CASH standing for Creating Assets, Savings, and Hope. And she also just brings a just wealth of experience and expertise with financial coaching and all things related to financial capability issues. And so we are so pleased to have them both here today over the course of the next hour to talk about financial coaching and how to build a financial coaching practice. So with that, both Sue and Tisa are going to be, giving some presentations. We have some time set aside at the end of the hour for your questions. So if you've got questions, you can pop them into the chat and we will address them later on in the hour. But without further ado, I will hand it over to Sue, and she's going to give us an overview of financial coaching. So take it away, Sue.
Thanks, Chris, and thanks to you and Meg Woodside for the leadership in putting this workshop together. Tisa, I'm just too excited to be doing this with you. So good afternoon, everyone. Really glad that you chose to spend this next hour with us, interested in learning about financial coaching and creating a business or a career for yourself in it. I am going to share a few slides here. Let's see. Can you give me a thumbs up if you can see it? Thank you. All right, as Chris said, I'm with the CASH Campaign of Maryland. We are a network of organizations and partners across the state that really works to improve the financial stability of individuals and families in Baltimore and across Maryland. So what that translates into is that we provide different programs and services to help people build their financial health or financial well-being. Our large tax prep service is called VITA. It stands for Volunteer Income Tax Assistance. It allows people who earn under $58,000 a year the ability to have their taxes prepared for free. And we use that opportunity not only to make sure that they are being tax compliant, but getting all of the tax credits and refunds that they're eligible for, but we also connect them to other services at that time, other things that might be able to help them use that refund to really build their financial health. We have financial education workshops on our mdcashacademy.org website, which is the one place we want people to look to find fact-based classes. We screen all of the educators and all the content, so no products and services are being sold or delivered there. Just really making sure that we cover the real realm of personal finance topics so people can get the information they need. We also help people get screened for public benefits. We have a financial coaching program and a program where people can meet with a financial planner for free. We have financial fitness fairs. If you're in Baltimore and you've ever been to the Money Power Day, you're excited. It's coming back in 2023. It had been gone for several years. So we're excited to bring that event of where there are different activities and programs going on. And it's a real exciting day. We also do a lot of work around advocacy and policy. And we have a banking program that connects people to safe and affordable bank accounts. So that's just a little bit about Cash Campaign of Maryland services that we provide. We want to kind of jump into financial coaching. And what is it? What exactly? There's been a lot of confusion about the different terminology in this field between education, coaching, counseling, advising. So we want to clear that up a little bit today and talk exactly about financial coaching. So coaching is a relationship that's based on the premise that people are creative, resourceful, and whole. And as a financial coach, that whole phrase is in my mind all the time when I'm working with people. One of my favorite coaches, Sandra Davis, that I'll talk about in a minute, has this quote, people may be broke, but they are not broken. And I give you an example from a coach during a training session when she discussed an opportunity that she missed with a coachee, and she actually didn't have this premise that they're whole, that they're creative, they're resourceful, and that they're not broken. And she shared with us that she's a coach at a community college and helping people get the resources they need while they're attending that institution. So one day a person came to her door, a staff person, and said, there's a student out here who would like to talk to you. So, okay, send them in. But before they left, the staff person said, by the way, I'm pretty sure this student is homeless. So see what you can do to help them. So the student came in, and from a visual perspective, the coach made the assumption, the belief that perhaps this person was homeless. So she started that Google search in her head. It just started going right away. She didn't start with the premise that this person is creative, resourceful, and whole. So she asked the student, what can I do for you? And the student said, well, I really need some help getting money for books. You know, my tuition is covered because of my income, and I really need help getting books. And because she was just thinking ahead and not listening really well and not basing on this premise, she said, well, you know what? I know the food bank on the campus is open on Thursdays. Have you been over there to get food? And the student was like, I have food. I can get food. I'm fine with food. So then she went a little further. She said, you know, the shelter in the city is open on these days, and you can go there. And if you need a shower, she started going on about what the shelter offers. And the student was like, excuse me, I only need help to get my books. I live somewhere. I'm fine. I've got transportation. I've got the tuition covered. Everything's fine. I just need help with books. And as a coach, that was a real moment for her to step back and say, oh, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing as a coach. I'm not listening, number one. And I sort of kind of made the assumption that this person needed help that they did not need. So as coaches, we are, again, really focusing on the person is creative, resourceful, and whole. The coaching relationship is helping the coachee identify a goal that they want to work on using their own resources, skills, and talents to develop that action plan of how they're going to reach that goal, take those action steps, and achieve that goal. So this is sort of an overview of what the coaching relationship is. The key elements of coaching is that it's focused on a long-term outcome. Generally speaking, if someone could achieve the change that they're looking to achieve by themselves in a few weeks or maybe a month, they may not need a coach. Maybe they're already, self-sufficient and self-motivated to do that. So taking a look at coaching and thinking that it's going to be a long-term process and long-term outcomes. It is an ongoing and a systematic collaborative process. The coach and the coachee work together. They walk together during that journey of achieving that goal. But it's aimed at behavior change. The person has identified something that they want to achieve or they want to change, and they just need someone to be with them, to not necessarily tell them what to do at all, but to be with them and support them while they are going through this journey. We're supporting people to practice new behaviors, building skills, perhaps teaching content based on the coachee's unique strength, going back to the creative, resourceful, and whole. So the steps involved in the coaching process is helping the person set that goal that they want to work on, then taking that action planning, breaking it down into very manageable steps, and monitoring to make sure that the steps or the work is being done while the person is, again, on that journey to achieve their goal. But something to keep in mind with coaching is, while we have the steps here in this box as 1, 2, 3, it isn't always a pure linear road. There's a lot of, the cha-cha, right? A little bit over here, a little bit over here. Sometimes people come into their coaching session and they've said to me, oh, you're going to be so mad with me. I didn't get anything done I said I was going to do. And I always stop right there first and say, number one, I am never going to be upset with you. This is a journey that I want to help you on. This is all for you and to support you. And we all recognize that life happens. And so while we're trying to achieve action and keep people motivated, sometimes they just need some space to say, I couldn't get it done this time, I'll get it done next time. And so this is coming from Sandra Davis, the coach I told you about, that's pretty amazing. She has Sage Financial Solutions, and she has this continuum here that I wanted to share with you about the different types of models around helping people achieve their financial health. So financial education is one of them, and that's really defined as a transfer of knowledge and information. So people go to a class, they learn what makes up their credit score, they learn how to check their credit report. That's a transfer of knowledge. Very useful, but there are a lot of other things that could be combined with it to make sure that action is happening. Financial counseling is specific advice for financial goals or challenges and information on how to access resources. So counseling is a very specific type of model, and I'm going to give you an example of that in just a minute. Financial coaching that we're going to be talking about today is the person's really working on goal and behavior exploration and alignment. It's client driven, it's decision making, but the client is the one that holds the agenda and that does the work. The coach is the one that is supporting the actions and supporting the decisions and kind of walking with them as they're going through that path. Financial planning, which again, we'll talk about certifications in a minute. So you think about a certified financial planner, but a financial planning is a comprehensive approach to determine how that individual can meet their life goals through the proper management of financial resources. This is very detailed. It takes someone with a depth of knowledge and expertise to work with the person to create that sort of individual financial plan for them and their family. Now, financial therapy is the practice and study of cognitive, emotional, behavioral, relational, economic, and integrate aspects of financial health. So all of these really have their role and their place. They all have their individual training. Some have certifications, but they are distinctly different. And so the distinction that I want to share with you is the difference between financial counseling, financial education, and coaching. There was a lady that I was working with due to a program that we ran at Cash for youth with disabilities. Her son had a disability. She also had a disability. We started out with financial education. She came to some classes. We did some one-on-one, just talking through different things she wanted information on. And then it came to, she wanted to set a goal. So we started doing financial coaching of where she wanted to achieve a goal of putting some savings away for her son's education in the future. We set the goal, we set some action steps, we started working on it and meeting regularly. And in the midst of this, at 3 a.m. one night, the FBI raided her apartment, completely traumatizing she and her son. Her significant other was arrested and taken away, along with a lot of items that were in their apartment. And as the FBI left, they said to her, you and your son are probably victims of identity theft. And with that, they were gone. So her case manager, fortunately, and her therapist and I came together, and coaching was not an option at this point. Absolutely, she was not in a place to say, how are you working on your goal of saving for your son's higher education? Immediately went into financial counseling and being very directive. We are going to the bank and we are going to change your bank accounts so that those can't be compromised. We are going to get your credit report. We're going to put a freeze on your credit, your son's credit, all the different steps that we had to take to remediate that traumatization that she had. That's counseling, not coaching. So I hope that sort of gave an example to address the different types of models here. But I want to pause for a minute and see if there are any questions or comments about what is financial coaching. Any comments from the participants? Maybe you already are a coach. All right, well, not hearing any questions at this time. I'm just going to go to one more slide and just put this up as a planting a seed. So we're going to talk about the different certifications and trainings, but I just want to start with a caution for anyone who wants to do financial coaching, that you are very clear and transparent about not calling yourself a financial advisor or that you're giving financial advice. So I'm going to pause with that, and I will come back to this when you're talking about different certifications and trainings. So with that, I want to kick it over to Tisa.
Okay. Thank you, Sue. I needed that. And once I share with everyone the nature of the client inquiries I usually get, you'll see kind of how that space of assessing the difference between coaching and counseling can sometimes get blurred. So I want to talk about an issue that's impacting a lot of people right now, and that's student loan debt. I'm sure many of you have heard about all the goings on with student loan debt in the headlines. And there's just been a lot of activity, more so than I've ever seen since I began working in the world of student loans in 2011. So in August of this year, President Biden announced a broad cancellation plan that was going to offer up to $20,000 worth of student loan cancellation for the majority of federal student loan borrowers. About a month later, after a couple of lawsuits were filed, there were some changes announced to the program that would exclude people who had certain types of loans. The following month in October, the application for the broad relief plan became available, and I believe nearly 26 million people have completed that application since then. Then in early November, one of the courts ruled that the relief program was illegal, and it came to an immediate halt. Soon after that, the application to apply for the relief was eliminated, and payments were set to resume at the end of December. So recently, the Department of Education came out and said that payments will not resume until there's a resolution of the legal cases, or June 30th, 2023. So in less than a year, we've gone up and down and everywhere else when it comes to student loans. And that's an experience that is not conducive to financial wellness and other forms of wellness for many people who have student loans. So I want you to think about all of that layered on top of the client experience that I'm about to share with you. So this comes from a person that I met in July of 2020 when I first started thinking about how to formalize my offerings as a student loan advisor / coach. So in July 2020, I spoke at a virtual conference, and someone reached out to me via email for advice specifically on private student loans. Private student loans are different from federal student loans in that they are issued from a private or alternative lender, such as a bank. And the person was really concerned about the private loans and had reached out to their servicer and confirmed that the loans were private indeed. So after reading that email, I said, okay, private loans, that means we have fewer options, because private loans, the rules of private loans come straight from the lenders, not from the federal government. So I met with the client virtually, talked a bit about the loans, and we decided that our plan was to search for competitive offers for refinancing those loans to get more attractive terms, primarily a better interest rate. But there was something in me that said, you know, something about these loans doesn't quite sound like they're all private. So I asked the client to forward me the correspondence that she'd had with her loan servicer. So I reviewed the email, and excuse me, there was conflicting information. Some traits sounded like federal debt, some sounded like private debt. So I said, okay, let me ask the client to go to studentaid.gov, which is the #1 source for finding your federal student loans, and pull what's called an aid summary to see what the history of that person's federal student loan borrowing was. Then I decided, let's hop on Zoom. Let's look at it together. So once we did that, we reviewed all the loans and found out that they were not private. They were indeed federal. On top of that, I found out that the client worked for the federal government, and that's when the plan completely changed from private lending refinancing to let's see if we can maximize federal student loan benefits, including public service loan forgiveness. So we shifted to take a look at consolidating as well as applying for public service loan forgiveness and verifying employment. So fast forward to September 2022, this borrower was eligible for the broad cancellation plan, as well as a special option called the limited PSLF waiver that just wrapped up at the end of October. of this year due to their past employment for several qualifying organizations. Since then, there has been another one-time change now announced called the IDR adjustment, which stands for Income-Driven Repayment Adjustment. And the changes as a result of that adjustment should be reflected on this particular borrower's account in July 2023. So my history with this borrower has been more than 2 years. We went from looking at taking another 20 years to repay, to taking another 10, to now possibly less than 5. But the goal has evolved from the private loan refinancing to the let's maximize benefits through federal student loan programs. And I just wanted to share that with you, one, to show you how financial issues can affect a person to the point where they need professional help in finding the most effective solution, but also how, as a coach or an advisor, you can use experiences like this to refine your processes. Because similarly to the example that Sue gave, when you look at a person and you just take that look at face value, your mind will go in the direction of where you think the person needs to go. But if you listen to the person, if you take a look at the information that they have, viewing their accounts along with them, then you can more accurately assess what the potential solutions are and what your role is in helping the person arrive at the solution of their choice. So at this point, I will kick it back over to Sue to talk about where coaching may or may not be a good fit.
Thank you. And Tisa, I think one of the things that we're really trying to get across today is that coaching works. And the reason that it does is because it is centered in the person who is wanting the action, wanting the behavior change, wanting the knowledge, and so using this technique of coaching is really very effective. We ran both a coaching program with using partners. We've also done the coach training ourselves at Cash staff and everything. And I've done a fair amount of coaching myself. And just a couple of stories I just want to share in terms of showing why it has an impact and when it is a good fit and when it may not be a good fit is one lady I'll call her Jasmine, not her real name, by the way, who I was coaching. She was on disability, so she's getting a little over $770, a month to live on. Her housing was stable. She was in a very affordable housing development, and she was going into overdraft fees every single month because, as she told herself, self-disclosed, she felt like she was a shopaholic. She just really enjoyed that option of going into a store and purchasing something, anything, So she would go into overdraft, and her goal was, I want to stop paying these fees to this financial institution. I don't want to pay them any more of this. So it took about 6 months in doing all the different steps and actions, but we finally got to a place of where she was able to pay her bills that she did and be able to have $20 a month that she could go wherever she wanted and spend it. That was, all she had, and she was fine with it. So over about 6 month period of changing it, the overdraft fee stopped. She had her spending, everything was in place, and just the stress level that you could see just came off. So it's something that Tisa and I just really want to impress on everybody, that coaching works. It does involve training. We'll go into that next. But there are some times, if you're going to want to work with someone, that you need to do some initial assessing to see if coaching is going to be a good fit for them. And Tisa, I imagine you see this too with the students that you're helping, is that there's a lot of people who say, yes, they want to coach. And then it's kind of a funnel down to the people who will commit to meeting with the coach on a regular basis, taking the steps that they've identified. So doing some sort of initial questions and assessment is very helpful to determine if the person really is ready for coaching. One other example on that was our group coaching program, where we had over 150 people email and say they wanted to be in the group coaching. And we did an interview with all of them. And literally we asked people, are you comfortable about talking your finances in front of other people? Not just your coach, but the whole other group. And they're like, oh, no, I can't talk to in front of other people about that. Well, then maybe individual coaching would be a better fit, but group coaching was not going to be a fit. So those are just examples of, when it is a good fit and when there are some things to think about. So we want to talk now about maybe how to build a practice. Tisa, I can kick it back to you, or we can talk about certifications and trainings.
Okay, well, I will share my screen once more, and Sue, feel free to jump in at any point in time, because I know we've got some overlapping content here. Okay, so I wanted to share with everyone some what I refer to as practice essentials, and I know this is a lot. I'll try to group them into three categories. The first is preparing and protecting yourself. Second is shaping the client experience, and third and finally is screening, scheduling, and tracking impact. So let's talk first a bit about preparing and protecting yourself. The first tip there is about determining and communicating the services that you are willing to provide. Sometimes when people hear a term like a financial coach, they might think that, oh, well, if it's anything related to my money, then you can help me with that. And they're not sure exactly what your role as a financial coach is. So you want to make sure that you come up with a list of services that you provide, and you make sure that that list is made accessible so that when clients are looking for a coach, they can easily determine whether you would or would not be a good fit for the goals they're trying to achieve. The next one is to include disclaimers if necessary. Sue began by sharing with you all that you really want to make sure that you're not using the term financial advisor. That is a special term that's reserved for people who have earned a certain type of designation. And there are rules and regulations that they're bound to as a result of having earned that designation. And you don't want to give anyone the impression that you have that designation if you do not. As a matter of fact, I was on a radio show last week and the person said, okay, we're going to introduce you as Dr. Tisa Canady, financial advisor. I said, no, please don't. Please do not do that. The word advisor is something that many people might use freely, but when it comes to finances, that's very serious and that's a special designation. So you want to make sure that people know you are not a financial advisor. One thing that I also include in my disclaimers is that I cannot guarantee outcomes. This probably bodes well for anything related to finances, but especially in the world of student loans over the past year where we have had many unprecedented changes and one-time benefits. So you want to state upfront that you don't guarantee outcomes. You can provide information, resources to help them achieve a goal, but you can never say, today I know that if you do this, that will happen and when, because you can't control many of those factors. So you want to make sure that you have an airtight disclaimer there. Next is to identify acceptable channels of communication and boundaries. And this is something that I definitely have had several lessons in. Being someone who has a professional page for Facebook, an author page, a personal page for Facebook, a LinkedIn page, an Instagram account. There are several ways that people could get in contact with me if they would like to. And in recent months, I've had times where people might reach out to me on Facebook Messenger. Even if we're not connected, they're allowed to send me a message, and that message is outside of business hours, or that message is received on a weekend. And early on, I would respond to those messages because I didn't get them that often. But once things picked up, I said, this is really getting to be a nuisance. So I turned off my notifications and during certain times, and also set a personal boundary that if someone reaches out to me during off hours or weekends, I won't respond until the next business day. And it's not that I want to delay them getting a solution. It's just that I want to set the boundary that I have working hours just like everyone else does, and I'll complete work during those working hours. So it's nice to be accessible, but you want to make sure that you are in control of when that business correspondence or the coaching sessions themselves take place. For me, what's been very useful in recent months is that when I receive a query from someone that I don't know that's asking, about securing services, I send them a link to my calendar. And through that calendar, they're led to a place where they can schedule an appointment after answering screening questions. But please set up those boundaries in the beginning so that you can start off your practice just from a more a safer place, let's call it that. Next is to set your scheduling limits, and this goes hand in hand with the boundaries. If there are only a certain number of hours per month that you can dedicate to your coaching practice, you want to make sure that within your scheduling platform, whatever it is that you use, and we'll talk about how to select those in just a bit, you want to make sure that you have limits. Perhaps you'll only schedule 6 hours of coaching meetings per month, or during the summer, maybe you up that to 10. But the point is, you've set limits so that your schedule does not become overloaded and you have to reject people because they've booked a time on your calendar when you technically are not available to deliver those services. So think about the number of hours you have to dedicate each week or each month to your coaching practice before you make your calendar available for people to schedule appointments. Next is to establish a process for handling a potential client mismatch. Sue, I'd definitely like to hear from you on this. I have one example that came about maybe about a month ago. I had a person reach out and say, I'm interested in public service loan forgiveness. Can you just, log into my account, fill out all the paperwork, do whatever it is, I trust you. And I thought that's very nice to be trusted in that way. But my personal model is that the borrower always maintains control. They maintain control of their account credentials, access to their accounts. The borrower is always the one to click submit or continue. I never take control of the platform because this is their responsibility and these are their choices. I'm just along for support and clarification. So I had to tell the person, I can meet with you to tell you more about it. I can walk you through it, but I cannot complete it for you. And she came back and said, but I really just want you to complete this for me. And I had to tell her, I'm sorry, that's simply not a service that I'm comfortable with providing. You can go to studentaid.gov, complete everything there. But that's where determining and communicating the services that you are willing to provide makes it easier for you to respond to someone who isn't necessarily a match. Because if you have that set from the beginning, it becomes much easier for you to identify who your client is versus someone that you may need to refer to another source or just tell them, I'm sorry, I can't help you with this. Sue, do you have anything to add to that part?
Tisa, I just completely agree with you. Sometimes I see people coming to us and saying, I really need help with filing bankruptcy. That's not really a coaching role at that point. That's a knowledge role of like, here are the different nonprofit credit counseling agencies or legal aid or some different resources for you to go to. But if you would like to be coached about your current spending plan while you're going through that, happy to do it. But knowing what is sort of outside of our lane is important.
Absolutely. And you all, if you really are serious about getting into this, you will find people that are set on you. Maybe they have heard that you helped someone else and they've decided you are the one, but ultimately it's your choice to accept or reject. And if what they're asking for goes beyond your services or something that you're comfortable with doing, just make sure that you're very clear in explaining to them, I'm sorry, this isn't a match. Here are your other alternatives. So let's move on to shaping the client experience. Once you've decided to engage, one thing that I find to be very helpful is to map the customer's experience or the client's experience from intake to completion. How long does it last? How many touch points could there possibly be? What are the major decisions that a person has to make? And if they make each of those decisions, what would happen next? It's not like having a crystal ball and knowing what every client needs, but it helps you make sure that you're giving a consistent experience across clients. So if the intake form is the same for everyone, you're collecting the same information up front. If the next step on this list, which is establishing an agenda for the session, if you have your agenda mapped out before you meet with people, you make sure that you touch on all the essentials during your time together. If your things like your greeting, your closing and follow-up are the same, it's much easier and it takes less time for you to get those tasks completed because you have the script that you've fallen into. I do want to say though, don't feel as though you have to have everything airtight before you start, because you might come across someone who totally shifts your perspective on some of these things. So it's good to have these categories of things and the major decision points that are involved in the experience. But just know that over time, as you meet with more people, you might find that there's a more efficient way to do certain things or a different order to complete tasks in that makes it more efficient for you and more effective for the client. So start with your shell and then optimize over time. For the agendas for the session, the basics are, of course, a greeting or welcome and introductions. I like to share ground rules. One of my ground rules is there's no judgment. The other is that you maintain control over your it's it's up to you to decide what those ground rules are. And I also share those ground rules in the confirmations for appointment booking so that people are able to receive it in 2 ways. Of course, the coaching is a part of the session, and then to wrap things up, you come up with your closing and any follow-up. For me, the follow-up email is usually a recap of the major points that were discussed. And if the person decided to take any actions, such as the most common ones for me, or a person consolidates or they apply for PSLF, I've got a document called What to Expect After Consolidating and Applying for PSLF, so that they can refer to that document when they reach certain milestones. Next one is to set up your timeline and your channels for payment. I'm fortunate in that much of my time is funded from partners, so I don't have to charge clients for the time that they're meeting with me. But in the event that someone does choose a paid option, they pay upfront. They pay before they schedule an appointment. That same scheduling platform has a mechanism for issuing refunds if a person cancels, but it's just very helpful to have the financial part out of the way upfront, instead of meeting with someone and then trying to collect funds from them after. You can decide whatever your model is. Some people choose to do like a 50% upfront, 50% on completion. I like to keep it simple. It's going to be X dollars for X minutes, and this is what you get from that time. And the payment is secured before the appointment is confirmed. As for the next section, screening, scheduling, and tracking impact. All of this can be wrapped together by choosing an effective scheduling platform. The one that I use is called Acuity. It's also part of Squarespace, which is which is also a website platform. There are others out there. Calendly is one that I've heard of. I know there are many options, but I encourage you to explore those and look at what's most convenient for you. The one that I use allows me to set a schedule, like Monday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. I have certain hours. It will allow people to book until those hours have been taken up. If I want to put 15-minute breaks between the meetings, I can do that too. It collects the payments, and it also has what's called my intake form. So questions that people have to answer before they're actually allowed to book an appointment. What's collected during that intake from the intake form can be exported to Excel later for analysis. So when you're thinking about scheduling, think beyond, this is a person using a website to book a meeting with me from 9 to 10 a.m. Think about what would be helpful for you to learn about that person before they come to that meeting from 9 to 10 a.m. And think about on the back end of your coaching experience with them, based on what they told you up front. What are the types of outcomes you would be interested in hearing from them, and how can you monitor their progress? Also important is to collect feedback. This is something that I am working on because I tend to meet with people, we stay in touch for a while, but I haven't asked them, well, how was your experience rated on a scale of 1 to 10? How useful did you find the information or the help? Collecting that feedback is really useful for helping you refine the experience that you provide. And while you might ask someone, well, tell me what you learned, that creates more work for me, in that I have to email someone to say, well, tell me what you learned, instead of having something that goes out automatically after a session that collects feedback. And if you choose the right scheduling platform, you can implement something like that up front to be more efficient. Sue, did you have anything you'd like to add to this?
No, I think it's just really important to make sure coaches think about this before they start coaching, because trying to catch up from it and implement new systems afterwards is just much harder. So getting all this straight beforehand is really a great idea.
Great.
And we've got a comment in the chat to when you have a chance to put in the name or names of those platforms once again.
Okay. Will do. I'll make sure that I add those in. I'm going to move on from this slide just in the interest of time, and move on to a bit more detail about what to consider with pricing. Pricing, I have to be honest with you all, that was the most uncomfortable thing for me because at the core of what I do, where student loan borrowers are concerned, I feel that student loan borrowers should not have to pay for help with student loans, but at the same time, it costs money for me to have a Zoom account. It takes time for me to meet with people and time for me to research all these different programs to give the best information about possible next steps. So the pricing really depends on what kind of arrangement you have. If you're a full-time employee of an organization that provides this kind of work, then the pricing is kind of taken care of for you because you're paid through that organization, and they'll set whatever they feel is the appropriate rate for that kind of work. But if you are self-employed as myself, for an example, I have grant-funded projects through other organizations that will pay me so that the clients do not have to be charged. If you're self-employed, you have to set a price. And when you're setting a price, there are a few different ways to think about it. One thing that I highly suggest you think about is the difference between cost and value. If you look at, minimum wage, what is it? It's less than $10 per hour in many places. Maybe that's what it costs for an hour, but what is the value that you provide by the work that you give within an hour? The value is probably more than $10. So you want to think about how much, what's the difference between cost and value, and where you want to set your price between those two. When you're thinking about prices, you also need to account for time beyond face time. If I simply billed for while I was meeting people on Zoom, that might be one hourly rate. But after I finish meeting, I have to take client notes, maybe update that intake document to reflect what our next steps will be. The Zoom subscription, the website platform subscription, a separate phone number from Google so that people don't have my personal cell phone number. If these things have costs that are attached to them, you want to make sure that you factor those into your pricing so that all of your expenses related to the coaching practice are covered. In setting what the number would be for a fee, you also have to be mindful of your client's cash flows. For student loan borrowers, they run the gamut of income levels, but you don't want to set a price that is going to price out the people that you want to help. So if you take a look at student loan advising options that are available, you will find people that may charge $50 or $100 for a session, all the way up to people who might charge a $1,500 initial fee and then a subscription fee monthly until your work with them has been completed. So there's a wide range of different pay scales. What you have to think about is what you're comfortable with, the value of what you're providing, and how realistic it is that the clients you want to help will be willing and able to pay that type of money. And I want to walk you through, just before I wrap up my slide presentation, I wanted to walk you through a situation where you could see how the coaching or advising helps with recent developments in the world of student loans. And this comes from an actual borrower that I'm working with. Let's call them Casey. Casey has a FFEL consolidation loan from 2006. FFEL loans are those older types of loans that were available before the direct loan program came out. Casey originally borrowed $14,500 and has a current balance of $11,110 after 16 years in repayment. Casey's monthly payment is $73 per month, with $41 going to interest and $32 going to the principal. The expected repayment term is 248 months, so 20 years and 8 months. And at this pace, Casey is expected to pay off the loan in 2042. Now, upon meeting Casey as the coach, right away, I know, all right, there's this one-time income-driven repayment adjustment that can help Casey get out of this debt before 2042. And the action steps would be to consolidate the loans by May 1st of 2003 to get maximum credit through this IDR cancellation program. In July 2023, Casey would receive an updated payment count so that we could see how many months of payments she already has, and compare those to the amount that's needed for cancellation. The result could be, in the best case scenario, that repayment could end 16 years earlier. That's in 2026. But the question is, what is the coach or advisor's role in this process? For me, it's not to look at this and say, oh, Casey, consolidate right now. Okay, consolidate right now, do it by May 1st, and this is going to happen and that's going to happen. What I can do is share, there's this new program that's out there. Let me explain to you how it works. I'll show you where you can get the information from. And according to these rules, here are the different possible outcomes. How do you feel about consolidation? And that approach works for me because I never want to tell someone what to do. It's their decision. And for them to maintain the power of choice, I can't instruct them, do this by this time and this will happen. So even though according to the rules, this is what I believe will happen, as a coach, I don't push the person to do that. I have to walk them through each step of the process and all of what it means, and then ask them, are you comfortable with this? And if you are comfortable with it, I'll do the application with you. You'll complete it. I'll watch you and answer any questions along the way. So that's my approach to it. You might have a different approach. And with a topic as specific as student loans, this is where we really go between coaching and advising, because it's such a specific type of financial issue. But you really want to make sure, or at least for me, it's a priority to make sure that the client maintains autonomy. It's their pace that we're moving at. If they choose to move forward, it's because they decided to move forward, not because I told them to. Just give them the information, explain to them the possible outcomes, and then let them make a choice. Once they make the choice, I give them my support, and then we check back in with each other periodically to see how their choice panned out. Right now, I've got to say this is a really interesting time in the world of student loans, because there's so many changes that are out there. People want to know, well, if I do this, is this going to happen for sure? And with this particular program, I honestly don't know. I know what the rules say, and I know that because the rules say what they do, certain outcomes are expected. But because this is a new program, I have not yet seen a person get through it in this way. So I have to maintain that honesty with people to say, these are the rules. I expect that the Department of Education will stick to them, but I have not had the opportunity to observe someone make it to this conclusion under this particular set of rules. And for some people, that has meant, well, I want to wait a few months to see people get through this before I do it. And that's their choice. And as a coach, it's my job to say, that's okay. I'll be here when you're ready to make that choice again, to support you. Okay. Any questions at all? I know we're coming up to the last 10 minutes of our time together.
Sue, did you want to talk just a bit about certifications, or shall we go right to questions? As I'm seeing questions appear.
I can do certifications in under a minute. Promise.
All right, perfect.
All right. Go back to my PowerPoint. All right, so just a note about regulation. When it comes to the terms coaches, educators, even counseling, there really isn't any federal law that regulates what that means and what kind of credentials the person has to have to call themselves a coach or a counselor or an educator. So it's frustrating in some ways for those of us in the field, because we would like to see some sort of definition around it, because anyone could call themselves a coach. Anyway, with saying that, we'd like to show you some of the potential trainings that you could avail yourself of if you wanted to be called a coach. And just keeping in mind again that you want to be really clear on what coaching means for your program or your business, however you want to run it. So the gold standard in financial topics is a certified financial planner, or CFP. That doesn't actually train someone necessarily to coach, but that does give them the financial knowledge that they need behind themselves to do financial planning. The AFCPE is an organization that offers a certification in financial counseling. This is one of the ones that I hold, that does a fairly rigorous amount of testing, studying, and 1,000 hours of counseling work to be able to have that certification. The University of Wisconsin-Madison, their extension service, they have a coach training that is really robust. The Central New Mexico Community College also has one. Sage Financial Solutions, I mentioned Sandra Davis earlier. She has a financial fitness coach training. NeighborWorks, if you work with any of the HUD certified organizations, NeighborWorks has a lot of training. They also have a coach training as well. And then if you Google it, but be careful, there are a lot of just fee-based trainings saying that they offer a coach certification. So if you're going to look at any of those, just do your due diligence to make sure they actually have credibility and meaning. One of the things that I thought was very interesting when I got my financial counseling certification is that the federal government, through all of the military branches and the university systems, through all their extension services, require their financial staff to have this AFC certification. So that just kind of gave me an idea of like who is requiring it, who is using it. So if you're going to be looking at different trainings, think about those kind of different factors. But Chris, I should kick it to you for the Financial Social Work Initiative.
Right. Yeah, thanks. Since 2018, we here at the School of Social Work have offered a certification program in financial social work. And we've been offering that about every other year. We are going to be offering it again virtually starting in March 2023. Applications and more info will be going up very soon on both our website and on the continuing ed website at the school. And we're also going to be adding some enhanced modules on student loan coaching, student loan debt coaching at the end of the CERT program later on in 2023. So I know some folks here have the certification, have taken part in our program. You can have the option of just enrolling for the for those additional modules on student loan debt coaching if you would like to get into that. And that's also going to be added on for people who are new to the CERT program as well. So just wanted to throw that out too. And let's just in our remaining 5 minutes just take on some of these questions. Donna has a question on programs that might help. Yeah, hey Donna, before they incur debt. So I'm gonna throw that out for an answer. Probably Tisa.
Yes. So hi, Donna. Some of the ones that I have seen are like definitely for-profit companies that talk a lot about access to scholarship dollars. It doesn't seem to necessarily be or I haven't seen a large presence around let's prepare everyone with the knowledge through a program to understand the process. It's really more pitched as how can we get you the most money as possible through scholarships so that you don't have to have student loans. So I'm not honestly not aware too many in that space at the Maryland Center for Collegiate Financial Wellness. That's an area that we want to get into, helping students and families build those financial life skills. And part of that includes being able to interpret financial aid awards packages and how to pay for school before they end up in debt. But that's an emerging space for us. All of that to say, unfortunately, I'm not aware of any reliable service that I would recommend that prepares students and families on the front end holistically.
Okay, thank you, Tisa. Meg asks, what skills and experience does someone need to find? Oh, yes, go ahead.
I'm so sorry. I think Donna had a follow-up question.
Oh, sure. Sorry about that, Donna.
And it's not just about student loans, though. Can you hear me?
Mhm.
Yep.
It's also about the idea of just being financially prepared. A lot of people make these decisions out of a lack of information. And so I'm wondering if there are some programs that exist, especially and I work with a largely immigrant population. Just to prepare people for knowing what it is that they can do, whether they're choosing for school or for choosing other paths, just to know, like, this is why you should have a bank account. This is what, stuff like that. I'm just wondering if there's anything in general about financial wellness in general.
Cash Campaign of Maryland. I was going to say, Sue, that's a great resource.
So definitely check out the mdcashacademy.org website, because that has financial education webinars on all the variety of different topics. We also have a banking program to help people get into, particularly as you're saying, those new to the country, to get into a safe and affordable account. So we have definitely different products and services that could help individuals, and be happy to share that with you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I'm done.
Thanks. And that really ties in beautifully with the next question about what are the skills and experience that a person needs, either if they want to start their own practice or if they're going to be doing it within their organization. Any other thoughts on where to build these skills and experiences that are needed for financial coaching?
So one way that I started personally, and that we train our coaches on too, not only is to select a training. We did the New Mexico Community College one, but you have to practice it. because it's not as intuitive and easy. When people come to you and they need something, as humans, I think we want to fix them. You know, we want to like give them information that we know will absolutely make the big deal for them. But as a coach, I think to Tisa's point, when she's talking with many of her borrowers and not filling out that form for them, you know, it takes practice. So it really needs time to practice those. And that's why the trainings are so important, because in those trainings, you actually do coaching with your other participants in the training. And that is critical. It can't be watch a video and then go coach. You have to actually do it and learn the mistakes, make the mistakes, and then, you know, go out and practice more.
Okay, great, thanks. And I'm just gonna, I know some of you might have to drop off, but if you could just take less than a minute to talk about the last question about advice for an undergrad or graduate student who's interested in approaching financial coaching as a career. And we'll get this recorded, even though I know some might have to drop off.
Sure. I would take a look at some of the great examples that are out there. The local financial empowerment centers, such as Cafe Montgomery, the Prince George's Community College Financial Empowerment Center. Look at the work that they're doing, attend some sessions, take note of other coaches that might be out there, of your likes, your dislikes, and think about what makes you different. And once you're ready to begin, it doesn't hurt to start practicing with people for free, just as long as it's practice. Take a few people, offer your services in exchange for their agreement to offer you meaningful feedback, so that you're able to, you might learn that the method that you thought was the best one isn't so useful, you know, on the client side. And that will also allow you to ask some questions potentially about pricing. And you take that feedback and you use that to help you enter the marketplace officially from a more informed place.
Okay,
And I'll just
great.
add very quickly, I think it's somewhat of a growing field. If you Google it, I did, the IRC, the International Rescue Committee, is looking for a financial coach right now. So, I mean, there are different organizations that are looking to hire someone to come in to support their coaching practice, or there's that option we've always talked about creating your own practice. So I think it's growing, and I think it could be a great career.
Thank you.
Sue,
And
Sue, I just wanted to ask you to elaborate a little bit more about what you mentioned earlier about the military options, because that's a, you know, national, international kind of career opportunity. And can you share a little bit about what you know about the military using financial coaching for their personnel?
Sure. So all the branches of the military, they call them different names, but they all have individuals who've been trained to do financial counseling or coaching or education. And they are there because it's such a concern and such a problem. As young people are joining the military, you may have seen bases right outside, or all these big signs about bad credit, you know, come here and get a car. So they're really sort of affinity scams that are preying upon those who are in the military and their spouses who are separated from, you know, their partners who are serving. So there's a big need to provide these services to the military, and every single branch has them, and they're located all over. So it is a big field to go into.
okay, great. Thank you so much. We're going to wrap it up. Thank you, Sue and Tisa. Thank you to Isabel and Meg for their support and collaboration. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. We will be sending out the recording, and please stay tuned to FSWI, our website, for more events for next semester. Have a great rest of your day and week, and thanks again for joining us today. Bye-bye.
Thank you.